Welcome back into mid-Norfolk here on the farm garden. Got an absolutely beautiful morning. Thought we'd come out and film a little garden tour, show you what's happening this week in the garden. We've got plenty of growth coming on. I always feel like I'm complaining about the weather here in Norfolk continuously this year, as is everybody, about the cold, wet, damp, grey skies. But it's been a pretty good growing season for most things, and just look at these borders, how lush they're looking at this time of year with the fresh green growth coming on. It's a cottage garden, this little border here, rammed with plants. Our planting style tends to be very heavy to try and suppress the weeds and volume of weeding we have to do in this garden. What tends to happen is that your narcissi and daffodils, after they're flowering, get grown around by the herbaceous that are coming up. You can see at the base of this daffodil we've got lemon balm just growing up and filling in around the silvery upright leaves of the daffodil. And we'll just let those fade away rather than cutting them back, or won't actually get to see them die back at all. The centre of the border again is absolutely packed. That bronze foliage of the peony bursting up right above a herbaceous geranium that's just growing underneath it. It tends to be dual height plantings in this one, everything competing for a little bit of space. In the foreground here we've got this rather mature clump of daylily that gets above the forget-me-not, and in the foreground last year we had some honesty. That tends to be a biannual. We've got some young seedlings coming up, but there's not much of that flowering in this border this year, and that's quite often the way with cottage garden borders. You'll get one thing doing really well one year, and then the following year it'll be something completely different. I'm really pleased with the hosta performance behind me. As you can see, they are really almost at their prime at the moment as far as their leaf form and colour is concerned. We've got a lovely collection here on the north face of this new barn. Lovely yellows and striated versions. Just look at this one. In this early morning light with the sunlight just coming through them, they really are spectacularly good. And we grow these in pots here on gravel. I find it's a fine combination to keep the slugs and snails at bay. This is one we purchased last year after visiting a garden over at East Ruston. Massive leafed variety. Got it in quite a small pot this year. You can just see on that. Just look at the way the rain droplets form in the striated lines on this. Sorry, I'm not alone here this morning. She's come out with me to have a wander around the garden. The borders here are a relatively new design, planted after the first round of building work we had here. Paths are all gravelled, and then we've got the boulders that we've shown you how we collected those from the local quarry, and a very cheap way of edging a border. It's a form of soft, hard landscaping, and by that I mean it's very forgiving. Just look at the way we've got this marjoram just tumbling over this big corner boulder. Our plantings tend to flow out from the borders over gravel, and plants like this, if it was over grass, would be getting mown and knocked back and looking not nearly as lush as it is allowed to just flow over the boulders and the gravel borders. We planted a large amount of Cicericium down here. You can see those on the edge of the border just behind that pot that's blown round, sorry about that. And then in the body of the border we've got these little drifts of forget-me-not, and the tufts coming up of bronze fennel, self-seeded, as it does in this border quite profusely. And then some herbaceous, but also some cottage garden plants. Chives are very easy to propagate from seed and grow in clumps for flowering the following year. It's one of my favourite things at this time when it's coming here. And it looks very good against the bronze fennel behind, which will over the next couple of weeks double in size and really start towering above a lot of these lower plantings. Colour with the forget-me-not just drifting through those old daffodils in front of the Cicericium, I think is very nice as the morning sunlight just brushes across over the top of the wall to the east. This whole fronds of the fennel just comes alive. It's fantastic. Yeah, just look at that. It's a very easy plant to grow this. It's very difficult to get rid of. once you've got it in a garden, you'll find little seedlings coming up all over the place, and the bronze fennel does tend to seed true, although very occasionally you get a lovely lime green one coming up. Again, we've got a mixed planting of roses, peonies, a lot of spring bulbs just now, almost at the end you can see, but the foliage I don't mind. A lot of people, once the daffodils have finished, if you've got just a monoculture, and it's a little disappointing for a while they die down, but having the mixed planting with the herbaceous around them really does give you that structure that fills in and overwhelms them. Planting's repeated to a large degree on this little border. Oxeye daisy, just look at the buds coming on this already. We're not even at the end of April yet, but that's going to be a profusion of yellow-white little daisy flowers in only a matter of weeks, I guess. The underplanting here is doing better this year than it has previously, but there's a lot of peony that was planted when these apple trees and roses were quite tiny, and they've struggled over the last 5 or 6 years. But now we've opened it up on this aspect, we're hoping they're going to do a lot better. It's certainly showing a lot of promise. Just look at that bud formation again. Everything's a little earlier and further on than it would have otherwise been if we'd had a cold, frosty spring, which we haven't. Damp, windy and wet, but not freezing cold. Now this whole area used to be the old vegetable garden, back end of the old farmyard with the stables leading out onto it, and there's probably only about 18 inches of topsoil here, and below that is the old cobbled surface. Not a great cobbled surface, nothing that we could expose and restore of the old farmyard. But as you come through this opening that's been created, gravel path that leads round onto the back of the house, you're in what was a little old orchard area. There's only one of the original trees still here. I'm amazed it's still actually alive. Just look at the state of the back end, very little bark remaining, lots of wormholes and a lot of dieback, but it's absolutely covered every year in a beautiful profusion of apple blossom. It's just at its very best in this light and at this time of day, and a small little canopy, lichen covered, really struggling, but it keeps going. And we've got some young apple trees that have been planted to replace them, both Bramley seedlings. This one hasn't had much flower on it at all this year, and this one we're still training into a shape that we can get the mowers around it, but a lot more blossom on that. The long border down the back is a real problem one for us because of the farmland and semi-wild hedge behind it, which allows ground elder, bindweed and a profusion of weeds to really get a grip in here. But it's so densely planted with some quite thuggish hardy perennials. Geraniums, we've got daylilies, tansy, which basically just thugs everything, doesn't it, and runs and runs. I have mixed feelings about tansy. I love it in certain situations, but in this border I'm constantly pulling it back. And then this little autumn flowering daisy, but just look, it's so profuse, running into the grass. Again, constantly needs cutting back, but what it does do is suppress all the ground elder very well by outgrowing it, really. Got a lovely little drift of pink campion just holding its head above that carpet almost of green foliage, and a little bit of this dark mauve purple geranium. Isn't that a fine pretty little thing? Plenty of flowers to come on this. Small flowers, but beautiful, really nice dark purple colour. And that runs through with the lighter pink of the campion, and a few bluebells just popping their heads up in the back of this border. This was a profusion of small tete-a-tete and February gold narcissi in here, and then some slightly later flowering large head daffodils that have been in here for 10 or 15 years as we've extended the border forward to get more planting into it. It's given us a good spring display, but now there's going to be a hiatus really until autumn, when this border again really pops. I don't know whether I'm misremembering the name of this euphorbia. I think it might be Fireglow. I might be mistaking it with a Crocosmia, but it's a striking thing. Grows to about 2.5 feet and has these really bright orange stems, and then the bracts of flowers at the top, again in bright orange and yellow, standing a good foot above everything else at this time of year. Now this border again's got a little bit of peony in it, some roses to come on, and then these lovely drifts of geraniums, herbaceous geraniums we're very keen on. And in this position, this one again's flowering very nicely. Slightly different variety, this one. So a bit of colour on the leaf as well. They've all been here for probably around 60 years, a lot of them. We grow a lot of herbaceous geranium. I love the form it gives you in the borders at this time of year, and then we usually cut them back around end of May, and they do exactly the same again, come back and give you another crop of flower later in the summer. This little area just forms a pinch point or walkway through under an arch of rose, and has always been problematic in the past, but it's doing better this year than it's ever done. Bluebells have really got a grip here and are doing fantastically. Just look at that lovely combination. Bluebells, campion, and then the comfrey, the white comfrey in this case, flowering nicely in this position. And then a long view up the bright pink and red burst of colour we're getting from the rhododendrons, which are still just getting going on this very dry bank. And the hedge beyond usually opens in May. There's one down the road which hasn't been flail cut last year, is breaking bud already, but we should get a lovely burst of lime green along the top of that hedge. My poor old summer house, still waiting for a bit of care and attention. And then the new quadrant garden, filling in nicely this year. It's its third year since we planted this. Catmints edging, again identical design to where we started in this garden tour with the gravel paths and boulders. Light's still not round on this area of the garden behind the house. Just wanted to show you this red and pink comfrey. These flower really beautifully at this time of year and give you a profusion of these little flowers. They look like they've been dipped really, don't they? Better when the sun's round on it. A little dark in this deep shadow at the moment. But generally the planting in here again is a combination of multiple varieties of roses on colour themes. Herbaceous geraniums, cottage garden plants, a little bit of forget-me-not running through there. It's just filling in nicely. There's a bit of bare earth here. We've done a few new plantings this year. The bowls here that we've chosen to edge this with are the autumn joy sedum that I really do love, both for its form at this time of year and that lovely foliage in that silvery green. Whoa, bye Marana. But also then the autumn colour, and even as the stems brown off, you get that beautiful architectural structure all through the winter. I'm very pleased with this planting we've got here. 3 symmetrical rows of iris, but I don't think they're going to flower this year. We were too late doing the division and replanting last year, and we've only just got around to top dressing with a gravel mulch. That's really to keep the weeds suppressed in this area. They're on really poor soil here, very gritty, very gravelly, but they absolutely love it and get baked. Sun's just coming round behind the old farmhouse, and for the rest of the day these will be in full sun. Now, these irises were actually the overspill that we dug out and had to move a couple of months before the ones I've just shown you, and just look at the difference getting them in that little bit earlier has made. The later ones towards the left as I pan out were planted much later. Some of them only went in over winter, and you can see the difference there. They sort of peter out, don't they? And the other problem here is this is one of the lowest lying areas in this garden, and they were underwater for probably about 3 weeks. I love irises when they're just opening up and forming their buds. This is when they really are teasing you really with all the promise that they're going to give you. The flowers on irises are very short-lived when they actually burst forth. Spectacular things. Again, I think this border, because we've got the long view looking back towards the old summer house through it, it's going to be quite a spectacular display. Certainly next year. But this year I think it's going to be interesting to see, because I can't actually remember what colour combination we've got planted in here. It might be a right mixture. Time will tell over the next week or so. Again, this is just on the other side of those, and the wet area, that lavender's really not enjoyed it very much. You can see the end of this little hedge. It's been treated exactly the same as the longer bit, which is greened up beautifully and is probably going to flower nicely, but a lot of slow to break branches on here, and whether it's going to die back completely, again, we will find out. The same's been affecting these catmints that don't like it down this end where it's completely waterlogged and wet during the winter. Being top dressed, they'll come back, but just look at the difference in growth a little further up where it's drier, and where it makes all the difference, doesn't it? If you can give something the right growing conditions, they're going to be in flower in a matter of weeks, and will continue to flower right the way through the summer. Absolute haven for the bees. It's a really nice way to grow catmints at the edge of a gravel path, because these Six Hills giants become massive plants, flop out sideways, and again, over grass, tend to get damaged by lawnmowers and don't look nearly as good as if you can let them just do their thing naturally and extend sideways. This again was a new planting. Took some grass out last year and extended the irises into this little area. It's worked really well. I think they're going to be spectacular. Again, flowering here. Love the way the dappled light's just coming through the apple trees and the rose trellis behind me to pick up these. Again, surprisingly, this soil absolutely waterlogged, low-lying, and had about 2 inches of water on it until about 3 weeks ago. But the irises at this stage look fine, don't they? Lovely amount of bud growth on them. I think they're going to flower really well. Should give us a good display. Daffodils almost over now. Got a few little late varieties still just giving us a peppering, but it's mainly deadheading to be done in the orchard now. Apple trees starting to blossom. We've got a surprising good growth of bluebells as well. I think she's thinking, why aren't I in my nice warm basket? It's a little chilly out here this morning, but she's being very good. I'm going to show you the bluebells at the top of this walk. Let me bring you up here. Lovely. I love this sorrel. Pink tufts like little bottle brushes. Grows very well just on that end. It's done there for about 5-6 years. More forget-me-nots. Hyacinths and muscari now finished. Primroses again just about finished, as are the early daffs, which was so spectacular down this long border. But just look what we've got now. This gorgeous drift of bluebells running through, a few little pink bells, and again with a mixed self-seeded planting of forget-me-not running through. And some of them, whenever we weed that border, what comes out tends to get chucked into this little bit of meadow under the apple tree, and just look what we've got as a consequence, both from self-seeding but also little bulbs that have made their way when we've been edging the grass. A nice little run of bluebells in the shade under this apple tree. Looking very nice and calm and tranquil. I'm hoping this sunshine's going to last all day and give us what we've really been looking forward to, a good gardening day. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that little taster of what's happening here in Norfolk in the gardens. It's lovely to be able to get out into this morning sunshine and show you the gardens. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Do subscribe if you want to see updates to this garden over the next couple of months. We tend to shoot quite a bit during April, May and June, when the garden's really at its best, and show you some of the great successes and failures that we have here in our gardening adventures. Thanks for watching.